So way back in the early 1900s, Leica made the first ever consumer camera that ran on 35mm film. And it kind of looked like this, and then later kind of looked like this. But these cameras are kind of an anachronism today. They're still really cool, but the Leica II and Leica III cameras are, less what you see on the street. But they're still really fun to play with. So the one thing is they load from the bottom, which is not what we're used to with an SLR where the back just swings open. These are a bit more complicated to load, and I found it very difficult to find good quality information on YouTube on how to load these. So with that being said, let's walk through how to load these. So today we're going to look at two examples of bottom loading rangefinders. We have first a Zorki 1, which is a Leica II copy, and we have also here a Canon III, which is a Leica III copy as well. So these cameras are both, as you can see, fairly small, pocketable even. With the Zorki here, when you collapse the lens down, you're able to just put this in your pocket and you can go off about your merry way. Because it's maybe more applicable for what people have, not as many people are maybe shooting Leica IIs. It's the same process, but we're going to look at the Leica III style, which is the Canon III, and I think that's going to be maybe the most applicable and the most recognizable for a lot of people. So what do we need to load this camera? Well, obviously, the first thing you're going to need is some film. So here we have just a little bit of Fuji 400 film that I got from CVS. Easy, nice, available, and I end up shooting a lot of it because it's available, cheap color film. And you can use the CVS coupons on it. Can't beat that. Anyway, what we're going to talk a little bit about in this video is film leader. So here you can see on your film that there is a little bit of a tongue on it. And that is called the film leader. So once upon a time, the film leader used to be longer, and my understanding is that it was cut probably because it was just wasted film, and eventually, film cameras don't need that anymore. So on these cameras, however, the film leader was a more integral part of the whole operation. So something that we need to do is we need to extend the film leader so that it can fit into this camera without damaging the shutter curtain. So the first thing that you might know about these cameras is that they have an L39 screw mount lens, which means that it is the Leica rangefinder standard for lenses. And so these are mostly interchangeable. To my understanding, there's some difference between Leica lenses, Canon lenses, and some of the former Soviet lenses that some are less compatible. Look online if you have questions about that. But the main and key unifying thing about these cameras is that inside there is a cloth shutter, and that if you want to use it, you have to wind it before you even think about turning your shutter speeds, or else you will break your camera and you'll be very sad. So now if we want to go from our current shutter speed up to, like, let's say it's a 1/200th of a second, we had to wind, and then now we're able to do that. This camera was recently serviced by Oleg out at OK Vintage Camera in Slovakia. Oleg did an awesome job with this camera. It is running good as new. This is 1951, and you wouldn't know it. It is beautiful. So how do we load this? I often end up taking my lens off because it ends up sort of weighting the camera in a strange way. But on the bottom, as we know, this is a bottom loading rangefinder. We are going to open from the bottom and a plate will come off like so. Now, in here you can see an illustration that shows you a bit more about how the film leader once was maybe a bit longer, but it's telling you how far out you can draw the leader. I don't really pay attention to that. I just sort of go by the steps that we're going to show you here. I have a film cassette in here, one of the metal film cassettes. Kind of cool, came with it. I don't really use it, but I like it for the authenticity's sake. So anyway, what we need to have though is our take-up spool, which I don't appear to have handy, and our film canister. So if I'm to grab my take-up spool, I'll just steal it out of the Zorki. That ought to work. Our take-up spool. Let me make sure I'm not misleading you here and that this will indeed fit in here. It looks like it should, and it does. Okay, we are in good shape. The Zorki take-up spool is working in here, and we are golden. So How do we do this? Well, first and foremost, set your camera down. Then get your film, get your take-up spool, and you're gonna need one final secret ingredient, and that is a nice pair of scissors. So I recommend just your standard sort of household scissors. I was using serrated ones before because that's all I had at home, and I didn't like it because I felt like it made strange little teeth on the film. So it's probably best to just use your standard ones. So anyway, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to draw out the film to be roughly the size of the back. So in this case, we've drawn out the film, you know, just by a couple more sprocket holes. But so this way we're able to draw the film out to be ready for our operation here. Now, to extend the leader of the film, we are going to cut along the film so that we can continue this same size, but we are going to take off the lower sprocket holes. I'm going to stop before the last sprocket hole so that we are able to maintain the general use of this film. So what do I do first? I go between these last two sprocket holes and I cut up at a bit of an angle, and I start curving, and I stop. And then, now that I have where I'm working to, now I go where I'm working from. And I start cutting down along the leader this way, so that we're able to meet ourselves here in the middle and try and round this off to make a nice, pretty cut. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. That looks okay to me. So what we need to do next is take our take-up spool, and we're going to take our film here. And sometimes this takes a little bit of thinking because the film is going to go from this side to this side. We'll take our take-up spool, find where the sprocket lines up, place it onto our take-up spool like so. And then in this case, this has a small hook on the take-up spool, so I just need to make sure that that engages. This is what you should end up with. Just a little, I don't even know what to call it. It's a little unit. And this is now going to be oh so gingerly lowered into our camera. And as you can see, we want to have it that we're able to fit this down into the camera, and we go slowly and gently. We don't want to force anything. We want it to go down nice and easy. And as we start to feel it seat in there, we just keep pressing until it's all the way in. And we've done it. That is loaded. So now what do we do? Well, now we're going to place our back on this camera. What I end up doing a lot too is I end up winding this on, listening to see if there's any sound of any sort. Some people will also take the rewind spool and turn it just a little bit to see if there's any tension that they can take out. But what I end up doing is I wind it and then I pull it back round to bulb. Because now that we're on bulb, we can look in and try and see that our film is advancing. So let's press and hold. Our film's there. Okay, so we're good. Now let's wind it on one more time. I hear what sounds like film advancing. Let's do it one more time. I saw a small little scratch on that film, and that scratch is gone, which means our film is advancing, which means we're good. Oftentimes for the Zorki, I'm able to see a small slit down in the corner. Maybe we just didn't draw out quite enough that time. It still worked, we're good. But usually you can see like maybe a little bit of a slit in the bottom corner where the first round had gone through, and then when you wind it and hit the bulb the second time, it's gone. So that film is loaded. Now we're able to just put the lens back on. And then we can wind once more. And only after we've wind do we touch our shutter speed dial. Let's set it to 1/100. And we're able to take that shot. And that's all we have for today. So good luck. Thank you for tuning into this. I know this is a not entirely intuitive process, and I think that it's something that should get more attention. But be sure to give a like if you found this useful, and check back for more content. Thanks so much.